Ακόμη πιο επιδραστικός, όπως είδαμε και νωρίτερα, θα είναι ο ρόλος του Elon Musk στην κυβέρνηση. Ο Elon Musk που δεν το έχει κουνήσει ρούπι τις τελευταίες μέρες από την γειτονιά του Donald Trump. Ένας άνθρωπος αιμονικός με τους στόχους και την υλοποίησή τους, σχεδιάζει σε συνεννόηση με τον Trump δραστικές περικοπές στο μέγεθος του κράτους και μάλιστα άμεσα. Η λογική έχει βάση. Με τους τρέχοντες ρυθμούς εσόδων-εξόδων, το αμερικανικό δημόσιο οδηγείται σε χρεοκοπία. Άρα, χρειάζεται ένα γερό τσεκούρι στις δαπάνες, προκειμένου το αμερικανικό δημόσιο να μπορεί να συνεχίζει να δανείζεται φθηνά. Αλλά πόσο ρεαλιστικό είναι αυτό? Μας απαντά ο Μπάρι Άιχνγκριν, καθηγητής στο Berkeley και από τους κορυφαίους παγκοσμίως για θέματα δημοσίου χρέους και δανεισμό. Τον ακούσαμε σε ειδική εκδήλωση της Τράπεζας της Ελλάδος. Σήμερα παρουσιάστηκε και η ελληνική έκδοση του βιβλίου που συνέγραψε με τίτλο «Υπέρ του δημοσίου χρέους» στα ελληνικά από τις Πανεπιστημιακές Εκδόσεις Κρήτης. Η συζήτηση φυσικά στράφηκε και γύρω από την ελληνική χρεοκοπία, τα μαθήματα που άφησε, αλλά και για τους κινδύνους για την Ευρώπη. Αλλά η αφετηρία της ήταν η επικαιρότητα.
Trump and Musk are heralding a dramatic slash of government expenditure, one that the mankind hasn't seen so far. Are you convinced, and should other nations follow this example?
I'm far from convinced. There's a long tradition in Washington, D.C. of saying we need to root out waste and fraud in the federal budget. And it's never been found because to a large extent it's not there. The vast majority of federal expenditure in the United States is on entitlements, which means pensions, healthcare, and the like. Much of the rest is on defense, and the defense budget will have to increase given global circumstances. So there is very little left, frankly, to cut. And I think the Musk-Ramaswamy show, if I can call it that, will be largely appearances to make the appearance that something is being done without the reality of much change.
Exactly, because a fragmented world, especially inside crisis, a geopolitical crisis, a climate crisis, needs massive investment, needs massive new debt. Is the world economy, the West economy, the European economy ready for such a shift?
Well, I think the Western economy, the European economy, the world economy has the resources to meet these challenges. Whether it has the will is separate question. So I think in the case of Europe, there will have to be investment spending, ramping up investment spending by governments as well as by the private sector. Governments will have to borrow in part to finance that additional investment in climate change, abatement and adaptation, clean energy, the digital transition. And some European governments are in a stronger position to do that borrowing than others. You'll know who I'm talking about. So that inclines me toward the view that Mario Draghi advanced in his report on the European economy, that there needs to be joint and several borrowing at the European level. So the countries with AAA ratings and the countries without them go in together on these investments.
But how this will happen, especially given the fact that many countries are resisting to do so, how Europe will increase its borrowing without jeopardizing its credit rating and without jeopardizing the unity, the union?
Again, I think the technical details are straightforward. The European Union issued bonds, 850 billion euros worth in 2020 in response to the outbreak of COVID, and it could do the same to finance climate-related investments. But the question is whether there is the political will and the political solidarity. In European history, crises have often been the trigger for leaps forward in European integration, which is what we're really talking about, and we have to hope that it's not more floods in Spain and climate crises that provide the trigger, but that European governments move in advance of those events.
Are debt crises, the way we experienced them in the European Union in the last decade, a thing of the past, or there is a chance that all of a sudden France could face a crisis of confidence in the markets?
That question I can answer with confidence. Debt crises are not a thing of the past, that they have been with us throughout history. Mm-hmm. I think that two factors that most reliably help governments and countries to avoid debt crises are growing the economy, growing the denominator of the debt to GDP ratio, as economists would put it, and developing the political solidarity to fairly share the sacrifices that might be needed in order to eliminate budget deficits and stabilize the debt. So Europe is challenged from those points of view. It is growing the European economy only slowly, and political polarization is a problem in many countries in Europe. So I think Europe is not in a good position from this point of view. It worries me.
Let me come a little bit to more Greek-centric issues. The debt default events create very deep wounds. Do you think that Greece has gone past its reputational damage?
I think, so far as I can tell, I'm not an expert on Greek politics and society, which is what you're really asking me about. I do think Greece is now displaying the political stability, and that it needs to continue on the slow but steady course it's been following to bring down its debt. It has impressed the credit rating agencies, which have improved the government's credit rating. So I think there is progress being made there. But bringing down a debt of 150% of GDP is a lengthy task. It will have to continue for decades.
So the
literally.
jury will be still out.
Right, so have me back in 20 years and we can talk about it.
Is it easier or more difficult for a country that experienced a bankruptcy to fall back into the debt spiral? Are there any lasting lessons in the society and politics? Are there more proof against populism? Or all these ideas and insights are falling behind as well?
I have to answer, it depends. There are cases, there are scholars who believe in what economists refer to as serial default. If you default once, you create social fissures and divisions that make another default later more likely. But there are also countries that go through crises and reform, that draw lessons about the need, as I said before, to create political solidarity and grow the economy, avoid reckless overborrowing. So some countries and cases draw positive lessons from their experience. Germany defaulted in the 1930s, and now Germany tries to be the paragon of responsible
and debt
borrowing.
breaks.
Yeah, with other consequences that all of us may not approve of.
You have argued of strategic use of public borrowing. What are the elements of the balance between accumulating debt for investment and, on the other hand, avoid the risk of another default?
Well, I think what is key is to borrow at the right times when the economy needs more support from the public sector, to invest productively. We have many examples around the world of railroads that go from nowhere to no place, and the bonds issued to build those lines then can't be paid off. So productive investment is important as well. And the third element is to pay down those debts after the circumstances that led to the need to borrow are past, to restore the capacity to borrow to meet the next need when it comes along.
Professor Áiχνγκριν, what is your most serious concern about the European Union and about the US in the coming few months?
Well, I think we all have to worry about how political circumstances and political instability will affect the economy. Obviously, there will be big changes in economic policy in the United States, and I worry about the consequences for the deficit, for public investment, for education even in the United States, and with events in Germany and in France, where the government hasn't fallen, but the government seems to be deadlocked in terms of making economic plans. I think those political circumstances will create headwinds for economic growth. It's what I worry about. I also worry about geopolitical events negatively affecting the economy. If there is an event disrupting traffic through the Straits of Hormuz or the South China Sea, that would be very bad for economic growth.
Professor Áiχνγκριν, thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you.